Hi, this is John again, and I'm going to be doing a video after over a year of absence from videos. The topic that I'm going to be discussing today is the collecting ancient coins for beginners, namely the 12 Caesars. So why are we talking about the 12 Caesars? Well, it actually starts with the ancient author Suetonius, who actually worked with during the time of Hadrian, one of the 5 good emperors. So Suetonius, he wrote about the lives of the 12 Caesars, and as we know, it was not a bed of roses. There was actually a lot of instability and a lot of assassinations and murders. And we're very lucky that this was actually one of the over a dozen books that survived from Suetonius, so we actually got to know a lot about the early Roman Empire. It's also very important to know about the history, especially when we're collecting emperors, to make the collecting fun. We can learn a lot from watching TV shows and movies. For example, the HBO series Rome talks about mostly Julius Caesar and Augustus Caesar. And there's also a movie on Caligula. Also, it also talks about, some movies talk about the times of the emperor. For example, the movie Pompeii was during the reign of Titus, and movies on Jesus Christ, for example, The Last Temptation of Christ talks about the times of Tiberius. Also, let's talk about the values of the collecting ancient coins of the Caesars. I actually feel that it's a low-profile, highly specialized hobby. It's actually been a very famous hobby even during the time of the Renaissance, but I think it is very undervalued. And you can actually get a raw denarius of one of the 12 Caesars for as low as $30. But when we're dealing with more expensive coins, for example, the year of the 4 emperors, that's going to be costing some money. And we got to be careful because there's a lot of forgeries out there, especially in eBay. So it's probably better for expensive coins to look at reputable dealers. For example, Harlan Burke, Trusted Coins, Edward Waddell. But one of the big milestones with ancient coin collecting is the incoming of NGC. So NGC now actually identifies the coins, it authenticates it, it grades it, and now we have something that's very liquidable and becoming a good investment. So I now feel that NGC was one of the biggest breakthroughs for ancient coin collecting. I made out a little graph for the 12 Caesars. This is the exact order that they appear, and the colors represent the duration of the reign. As you can see, Augustus had the longest reign, followed by Tiberius. The first 6 represent the Julio-Claudia dynasty, namely Julius, Augustus, Tiberius, Caligula, Claudius, and Nero. This is followed by instability and the year of the 4 emperors. And the last 3 represent the Flavian dynasty, namely Vespasian, Titus, and Domitian. Vespasian and Domitian are 2 of the Caesars from the Flavian dynasty. These 2 are the easiest to obtain. They had long reigns, very plentiful and inexpensive. You can actually get raw denarii for as low as $30. An NGC low grade you can get for less than $100, and an NGC extra fine you can get for less than $300. Vespasian, he was last of the year of the 4 emperors. He and his 2 sons, Titus and Domitian, make up the Flavian dynasty that ruled for 27 years. He was one of Rome's most successful generals. His reign was a period of political stability. He was well liked, he restored the capital, he built temples, and even started the massive Colosseum. So here's a nice NGC Vespasian in very fine condition. Now this is Domitian. His 15-year reign was one of the longest, and as a general rule, emperors who ruled for many years had longer time to make coins, resulting in greater numbers available. His reign came to an end when he was assassinated by court officials in 96 AD, which marked the conclusion of the 12 Caesars. So here's a nice, very fine NGC of Domitian. You can see that it has very nice detail. This is Augustus Caesar, the second Caesar succeeding Julius Caesar. He had the longest reign of all the Caesars, 41 years. His coins are very plentiful, and he's very famous, and he also had a diversity of coin designs. This is the era where the Roman Empire began. He was one of ancient Rome's most successful leaders who led the transformation from a republic to an empire. His coins are plentiful, but due to his popularity, this will command a premium. A raw coin will cost at least $150 in low-grade condition. An NGC low-grade will cost at least $250, and an NGC very fine will cost over $400. So here's a nice, very fine NGC condition of Augustus. You can see a very nice detail. This next coin is Caesar's Comet Julian Star. This is one of the most famous sought-after coins. It's very elusive and appears very infrequently for sale. During Julius Caesar's funeral, a bright comet appeared for 7 consecutive days, which is believed to be Julius Caesar's soul ascending to the heavens. The comet was actually Halley's Comet, paying its regularly scheduled visit. The next two emperors, Nero and Titus. This is now the upper mid-range in rarity. A raw low grade would cost a minimum of $150 to $200. An NGC low grade would cost anywhere from $250 to $300. And an NGC very fine would cost a minimum of $600. Nero was known as a monster, best known of the worst emperors. His rule is associated with tyranny. He allowed his mother and wife to rule and then had them murdered. He persecuted Christians in public games, and he was also responsible for the great fire in Rome to clear space for the palace and the new Rome he wanted to construct, and he used Christians as a scapegoat. Notice the style of his portrait. He initially started out early as conservative and youthful, like the earlier Caesars, and then appeared more realistic, aging, fatter, with authority. This realistic pattern continued until Titus's reign. So this is Titus. He was the toughest of the Flavian dynasty. He reigned for 2 years. He succeeded Father Vespasian, becoming the first emperor to come to the throne after his own biologic father. He completed the building of the Colosseum, but barely 2 months after his reign, Mount Vesuvius erupted and wiped out many cities, including Pompeii, killing thousands of citizens. This is one of the denarii minted around October when the Vesuvius erupted. This is Tiberius. His coins are boring with very little variety. However, this is a good example of a coin that's very plentiful and historically significant. We're talking about the famous tribute penny mentioned in the Bible. Jesus was put to the test when asked if it was lawful to give attribute to Caesar, and he asked to bring him a penny, which was a denarius, to see Caesar's portrait. Although their denarii from years back continued to circulate, the denarius from Tiberius was the most abundant during that time, and most historians regard it as the most likely candidate for the tribute penny and is termed as such for sales. Again, the Tiberius denarii had very little variety, and probably the only one you'll see for sale is Olivia, his mother, seated on the reverse. Because of the coin's historical significance, popularity in its collection overlaps with people specializing in coins from the Bible. This forces the price to be somewhat higher than the rarity of the coin. So just to own one, a raw one will cost a minimum of $200, an NGC low grade will cost about $300, and an NGC very fine will cost $600 on up. There's a nice extra fine one. 69 AD, the year of the 4 emperors, Galba, Otho, Vitellius, and Vespasian. The first 3 denarii are very scarce. Nero's suicide left a huge crisis. The three reigns only lasted a few months each because of instability and civil wars. They are overall rare given the very short reigns combined with the demand to complete the 12 Caesar set. An NGC low grade will cost a minimum of $400, and an NGC very fine would be $1,200 on up. This one here is Galba. He was a distinguished senator, governor of Spain, commanding a legion, and was ideal choice for the leader of the rebellion. His reign was short, on 68 to 69 AD. He ended up being murdered by the Praetorian Guard for his failure to keep promises to those who kept him in power. Otho, he was the second emperor of the year of the four emperors, and was emperor for the shortest period of all, Caesar's, a mere 3 months. He was a mentor of Nero and an aggressive social climber. He also was one of Galba's strongest supporters during the revolt. However, Galba alienated Otho and chose another heir. Otho was outraged but also concerned of his own safety. Otho struck first and killed Galba with the aid of his cavalry. But he quickly found out that restoring the empire was too large for him to accomplish, and it didn't go well for him as his armies were soundly defeated by Vitellius. And to prevent a civil war, he committed suicide at 36 years old. So Vitellius was emperor for 8 months. He was viewed as a man thrust into the throne unfit to rule. Vespasian, first of the Flavian dynasty, thought highly of Galba and Otho, but didn't really care much for Vitellius. Vitellius was later murdered in December 69 AD by the invading armies of Vespasian. Even with his short reign, Vitellius has struck a sizable quantity of denarii. Wow, Julius Caesar, the first and by far the most famous Caesar. I remember the joy and awe of owning and holding this denarius of Julius Caesar's portrait, even though it was in terrible condition. He was a Roman statesman and military general who played a critical role in the events leading to the demise of the Roman Republic and the rise of the Roman Empire. His history and his assassination was made famous by William Shakespeare. I later upgraded this coin to a fine NGC one, a very nice coin. Julius Caesar took steps to declare himself perpetual dictator by placing his portrait on a coin, and he knew it would offend the Senate, which ultimately sealed his doom. Although there's a good number of denarii minted by Julius's long reign, his portrait on a coin is very rare, and it's a grail to most ancient Roman coin collectors. However, his coin can be a goal within a modest budget, with an NGC low grade costing $1,000 and an NGC very fine costing more than $1,500. Caligula and Claudius. Both Caligula and Claudius denarii are by far the rarest and most elusive. Coinage was fairly common during their reign. However, both emperors did not issue too many denarii, so their coins are much more rare and most expensive in the set. An NGC low grade, we're talking a minimal of $2,000, and an NGC very fine, a minimal of $4,000. This is Caligula. He was out of my price range, but at a convention, I was able to get a raw denarius of Caligula from a reputable dealer, but it had a fair-sized piece broken out. There are few surviving sources about the reign of Caligula. During the first 6 months, he was described as a noble emperor. Afterwards, the sources focused him as a monster with cruelty, sadism, extravagance, and sexual perversions, presenting him as an insane tyrant. He had many conflicts with the Senate, using arrogance and mockery. He even threatened to make his horse part of the council. His irresponsibilities and cruelness made life too unpredictable to the men that backed him, eventually resulting in his murder. Claudius succeeded Caligula. He is the most elusive coin in the series, but Caligula is just a hair behind. Claudius was born with infantile paralysis, handicapped, disfigured, lacking imperial graces, had difficulty walking, and the tendency to slobber when excited. Even Augustus and Tiberius tried to keep him out of the public eye. Caligula kept him around at the court more as a toy of amusement. After Caligula was murdered, Claudius was found hiding behind a curtain, fearing that he would be murdered. But to his surprise, the next day, the Praetorian Guard, they made him emperor. As a whole, Claudius' reign was quite stable. He accomplished many positives with numerous public work projects, and he also expanded the empire. Claudius, while recuperating from an illness, was poisoned, resulting with the succession of Nero.